Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. I'm just the way this light is on my life. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Mhm. 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 I like to face away from me entirely. No, can't do that. Can't have that. It's just really white. It's so bright. What you cannot stop does not exist. What you cannot do, what you cannot do. Mhm. The universe. Okay. Um. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Um. mhm. Today. Excuse me. Today. Hi. Good morning. I already accepted this was going to be a recording because I'm like, no, nobody's here. Today I'm here to talk about growth, right? Growth in the sense that it is necessary. Um, and it's one very fascinating thing about growth is that there are times like there are different seasons or there are different ways that we experience it. Sometimes it's a very conscious, very painful thing, right? Sometimes it's a subconscious thing embedded in your daily life. So I think a great example is when guys are having their growth spurt. I only have brothers, so I experience different growth spurts at different points, right? And what happens for my brothers, it was that they were normal height, or they were my height. I'm short, I'm 5'1". They were my height, and then they had a fever. Both of them, they had a fever, and after 2 or 3 days, they just kind of popped. And right, that's growth in a way, and it was painful. It was painful for both of them, you know. And then there's also, I'm using them a lot because I mean that's like the best reference I can think of right now. And then there was also when they grew into having beards. They never used to have, in fact, I remember my youngest brother always making fun of me for things like hair. I'm really hairy, and he'd be like, "You're so hairy," and he'd make fun of me for having pimples. I used to have acne when I was a teenager. Not like bad, but it just came and went, with hormones and stuff like that. And he'll be like, "Ugh, pimples. I'll never have that. That's disgusting." Because his skin was always smooth because it was a baby, you know. And then he grew and started having pimples, and then there's just hair coming out of every part of his body, and it's like, I'm like, look at you. And it's like, I was a boy then. I'm a man now. And we joke about it a lot. Like, you who said you would never grow hair, you used to be like facial hair. Or like, I like my face smooth now, but he has like beards. And every time I make fun of him, like, look at you. This is what he used to say. Be like, I was a boy. I'm a man now. And so the transition from boy to man happened naturally in his daily living because he was just passing through life. And so for those two references is that there are sometimes growth is like that. It's painful. You see signs, you feel it, you know that this is a pain for growth. This light is bouncing so hard off this top and it's messing with me a little in the head. But when I do this, it's not very clear and I don't like that. And I can't decide which one I want. So let me try this. Still bouncing, but a little better. It's just that all the shadows are obvious now. Anyways, yeah. To take it back to what I was saying, so there is. See, this is This is one of the problems that I have because I'm like very exact. I like things exact. And when they are not, I struggle. I am struggling right now. The lighting looked okay, to be honest. When I first set up, it was just that I sat down, like, there's a lot of light on this blouse. Anyways, I'm just gonna keep going. And so it's that growth will happen like that sometimes. It's this very obvious or powerful announcement type growth. It announces itself sometimes. And other times it's this, you can barely tell that it's happening, but it's happening naturally. And the thing is, this is necessary for every single person. You have to grow. And like with our bodies and with our, natural growth, there are times while growing that the growth, the thing, the growth, the event, whatever it is, will announce itself. It will be heavily announced. You will not be able to doubt it. It will be obvious that this is a growing pain. This season I'm growing. And so these experiences are growth pangs. There are times like that. And there are times when you just realize, I suddenly became this person. I suddenly started doing this naturally. And it was not planned, it was not premeditated, you were not conscious, but just by virtue of the life that you're living, the lifestyle, everything, that growth happens. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today is how growth happens, and how we have to grow. We have to grow. It's compulsory. Growth is non-negotiable, It's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Is that whether or not you are ready for it, whether or not you feel like you are at that phase, whether or not you are even willing, you have to grow. What happens when you don't grow is there becomes a war. It's like a disagreement, a tension between your reality and your consciousness of your reality. So it's that you are here, but you know you are not supposed to be here. You are doing this, but you know you are not supposed to be doing this. Your consciousness of your reality starts to struggle with what your reality is because the your soul, your spirit, everything inside of you knows that this is off, this is weird, this is wrong. And what this means is if there's an area of your life where you should grow that you have not yet grown, that disparity will be there. It will be a thing that you are feeling in your heart, in your mind. There will be that, what's the word? There will be that, ugh, that tension. You will be, you might wake up every day. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is so bad, but I don't know. You might wake up every day. I'm just worried that the video is too dark. Um, you might wake up every day, go to your perfect job, work out, eat right, hang out with friends even. And while you are there having those experiences, your consciousness is like, your heart, your mind is like, I shouldn't be here. This doesn't feel right. Something is missing. Sometimes that's as a result of refusing to grow out of something into other things. An example is if you're in a season where you're working a job and then that season is over, you need to move to a season where you're doing something else. But because that job feels safe, it feels like that's where you should be, and you stay there, you will feel it. You will feel it in your heart. There will be that consciousness that something is not right. If you're in a relationship you shouldn't be in, you've outgrown a friendship, you've outgrown a relationship, you've outgrown, but you're there. After a while, there would be that, it will just be a battle in your heart. It will be a consciousness. I shouldn't be here. So, because your heart at every point in time, right, your spirit man knows where you should be because life is largely spiritual, as I always say. Every point in time, your spirit man knows where you should be because there's a journey, there's a there's a reality, there's a story that is mapped out for you in the place of the spirit. And so when you are not living that reality, there becomes a tension there starts a tension in your spirit. Like, we should not be here. This is not right. This doesn't seem right for us. This doesn't feel right for us. So even if physically you are there, you're trying to get that second degree, that third degree, your spirit man knows this is not where we are headed. This is not where we should be. And the truth is, growth is compulsory. Is You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. Much like physical growth, right? You can't avoid it. There's always going to be the phase where you're young, where you're small, where you're just starting out, where you're a child or an amateur or a beginner. And there's the stage where you are grown, you're an adult, you are learned, you are expert, you should have specialization. For instance, you've been in a career path for 10 years. At this point, you should have specialization. If you're 5 years in, we can say you're building your portfolio. If you're 10 years in, you should have specialization. You should be grounded in the thing. And so, what happens when you should have grown in a way or a sense and you haven't is that even the signs, at some point, it will be in your spirit, but after a while, it will become obvious signs to other people. Is that you look at somebody and be like, why does this person think like this? Why do they act like this? They should know better than this. It's because there are expectations that come with adulthood separate from childhood. There are things you expect an adult to understand that you just know a child doesn't understand. And you are surprised when a child understands. Because the expectation, what is normal, is for the adult to understand. There are childish things, and there are things for adults, there are things for men, right? Grown men. When I say men now, I don't mean men in the gender. I mean man, like in the sense of humanity. So there are things for the child and there are things for the man. There are things for the baby and there are things for the man. There is milk and there is meat. That scripture says, when I was a child, I acted as a child. I thought as a child. Again, we're not paraphrasing. I spoke as a child. I did everything as a child. Let me read it. 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. There will come a point in our lives where there is no choice. Childish things have to go. There will be no choice. No accommodation of childishness. Life, and that is what happens in all our lives. I don't know. It gets to the point in life, I could smell something burning. It gets to that point in life where the demand is for childishness to be put away. One of the stories where this is apparent to me is Moses, right? Moses is pretty cool guy, right? He's, this Hebrew child who was saved by the wisdom of God in his mother. He was saved and he had the opportunity to grow in the palace. And yeah, because of his divine destiny, he had education of a prince. He was trained in leadership. He was prepared for the assignment, right? For the work that God was going to use him to do with the Israelites. And then Moses grew up and he saw somebody fighting, he saw people fighting, and he's, someone maltreating his tribesman, and he lost his temper, he got upset, he killed this person out of anger, right? And in killing this person out of anger, he could have what's the word? He could have gotten away with that, but he could not. Because when you grow up as a prince, maybe, as an Egyptian prince, maybe, but as a Hebrew, no. As a Hebrew person, no. And so it was in that moment, when that thing was, I'm angry, I want this, I want that, and you commit that act because your heart is grieved. But that is not those actions are it's not ideal. Could be considered childish to some extent. You know, when it is your impulse that moves you, impulsive actions, temper-based actions could be considered childish to some extent. And so he kills this guy. And the next week he comes and is like, let's live together. You're paying that money. But you killed someone, like very recently too. And so this person is like, nah, you don't get to talk to me. Like, don't chat to me, bro. I saw you. I saw you kill someone last week. I don't know if it was last week. I'm just saying now. And Moses is scared and he runs away. And in that running away, he runs away for 40 years. And in that period, it's him, trying to escape, trying to escape. And I love that in the story of Moses, right? In that escape, he explores, he actually does live his life. He gets married, he births children. But this is a prince who was trained in great leadership. And I understand that, yes, he must have felt very displaced, very, stressed, very everything and everything. But in running away, he couldn't stay there forever because after a while, God is like, all right, you had 40 years, it's time to move. And that's what happens. And when I read that story, as I'm thinking about that story, every time I'm thinking about that story, I'm thinking it was that God first allowed him, like, do your thing. But now it's time to grow out of that place. I mean, Moses could have stayed with his knowledge, with the information he knew. I think he could have lived a pretty happy life as a shepherd with his father-in-law, and they just built this dynasty, and his Jethro and sons-in-law, right? It could have been really nice. But the thing is, the point I'm trying to make with Moses' story is that even when you find yourself, hiding out somewhere, purpose would require growth of you. Your purpose will require growth of you. And this is what happened to Moses. His purpose required him to grow. His purpose required him to use all that he had been taught to apply himself. His purpose required him to go before the king, who was probably his stepbrother before, and say, look, these people, let them go. His purpose required him to go there, knowing that he was a stammerer. Yes, having Aaron beside him. His purpose required him to go there boldly and say, thus saith the Lord. His purpose required him to lead this multitude of people, this entire nation, and tell them, be still, for you stand still and see the salvation of God. Boldly. His purpose required him to grow in a level of faith that was ridiculous. A level of faith where he heard, stretch your rod, and he stretched his rod. And that rod became a snake, a serpent. Another point, stretch your rod, he stretched his rod, and that rod parted a sea. His purpose required him to grow to the level of faith where God is like, just keep your hands raised and the battle will be won. And he sits like this the whole time. At some point, he's like, I need people to raise them hands for me because I can't keep them up anymore. His purpose required a level of leadership, patience, understanding. Maybe this is why Moses himself wrote that he was the meekest on the earth, because he probably considered his life himself and just like, all these things I'm going through, I don't deserve, but I'm willing. In humility and humbleness. It's like, yes, I'm actually quite meek. Maybe, maybe. And the truth is, growth is non-negotiable if you're going to fulfill destiny. If you're going to meet you, if you're going to fulfill purpose, growth is non-negotiable. Mm, God, growth is non-negotiable. If you don't grow, if you don't accept that process of growth, you will not be able to fulfill purpose. You have to grow. You cannot, there's no discussion for this. There is no, you have to, it is non negotiable. There will be seasons in your life that will test you, and that will be a part of your growth. There are things that if you don't experience them, you can't grow. So, for that reason, God will let you experience them so that you can grow into purpose. Because the point is always purpose. I quoted here, I don't know, 2 months ago or so, I quoted here one of my favorite definitions of purpose. It's from the pastor Emmanuel Aaron. He says, that thing for which you were created, that anything else that you achieve will not have mattered if you don't achieve that thing. That's what purpose is. And so purpose requires you to grow. It will always require you to grow. Purpose will always require you to stretch out of yourself. Purpose will always put you through a rigorous process. It will always put you through a rigorous process. It will put you through a testing and a burning and a stretching. Growth is non-negotiable. You have to grow. And growth is always painful, always inconvenient, always inconvenient. Even the one, like I said in the beginning of this life, they're the parts of growth that are very obvious and people, they're the parts that are just woven into your daily life. Even the ones that are woven into your daily life, even those aspects of growth, you will find that they start in inconvenience a lot of time. A lot of times, rather, times. They start in inconvenience. Learning, maybe building the habit of fasting, learning to study more, learning to pray more, waking up early. Those things are built they are steeped in inconvenience. In this age of mega distractions, there's always entertainment available. Not being entertained, studying instead. Those things are pointers to growth, but they don't feel convenient. They are not enjoyable at the beginning. You don't enjoy that process. And it's okay. First of all, it's okay not to enjoy stuff, especially if it's stuff that is needed. You want to grow healthier, you will eat a lot of tasteless stuff. You will eat a lot of food that you're just like, why am I here? And why am I suffering like this? As you say, why am I suffering myself? You will know that I'm putting myself through something. I'm going through something I shouldn't go through. I would reckon that Moses had those 40 years to actually learn normal living because he was going to deal with regular people for a while. And so, even in that period where he thought he was hiding away and resting, he was growing. Every moment of life will demand growth of you, whether it's micro growth or major growth. Every moment that you're alive will demand growth from you. Moses was tending sheep because there's an illustration of God to us as a shepherd. And if Moses was going to lead God's people, he had to understand that. He had to understand being a shepherd. He had to understand tending sheep. And even then, it was not enough because his temper still reared up at some point in the journey. But he was able to bear a lot and lead a lot better because he had experienced 40 years of that molding and that calming. If the Moses who lost his temper and killed somebody was the Moses who led the Israelites, I'm sure he would have given up a day or two into the journey because those people were grade A complainers. And somehow, with all they had seen, they still had trouble regarding God. They did not regard God enough. And so, if Moses did not have 40 years to grow into an understanding of leadership by leading a family, by leading sheep, oh, 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 something just occurred to me right now. Something just occurred to me right now. I want to do that thing that pastors do. Leadership is leading sheep. And if you cannot lead sheep as a shepherd, you cannot function in premium leadership. Oh, I don't know where that came from, but oh, I played too much. My point is, Moses needed to grow into an understanding of leadership. And God did that for him through that illustration of being a shepherd, of living that sedentary life. Because for the person who will lead, you have to understand it. You have to understand, you have to have the heart of a shepherd. You cannot lead if you don't have the heart of a shepherd. Perhaps this is why it's called leadership. I'm still there. I'm still in the leadership place. I need to be serious. Okay. So every moment of life, every purpose that you have to achieve will require growth of you. And if you cannot step into those things that will propagate your growth, like I said, there will be that disparity. Your spirit man will know, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm functioning in a place that is beneath me. And that is why you will have a great job. You will have cars. You will have your own house. You will have wealth. And you will be like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. There's something missing. Because purpose is not you just living how you want to live. Purpose is you living the reason for which you were created. Purpose is you fulfilling that thing that God made you for. If you don't fulfill that thing that God made you for, you will know. Your heart will know. And this is why you must welcome that growth, because purpose requires growth. Fulfilling purpose requires growth. It's a prerequisite. As in, a prerequisite is required, is a pre-requirement. It is required for stuff to happen. It is the cause that will create the effect. You got to grow. You have to embrace growth. And scripture says that even Jesus grew. He grew in wisdom and stature. And then he had favor before God and man. So growth is a predecessor to favor. If you don't grow, example, you're an adult person, but you still act and talk like a teenager, you're not going to get favor. Nobody is going to look at you favorably. There has to be that sign that you've grown. Growth across in wisdom, in an understanding of your purpose, growth in faith, because faith is needed for purpose. Like, do you know what it means for someone to raise their hands, knowing that these hands must stay up for the battle to be won? Do you know what it means for someone to say, God will provide every day for us in this desert? It's not like Moses had seen manna before. But Moses was so grown, he was so solid in the knowledge of that faith. And you know why? It comes back to fellowship. I feel like for the next, I don't know how many days, but every time I talk here, everything will be able, like, we'll trace it back to fellowship. Everything can be traced back to fellowship. Joseph was another one of such people. Joseph was there in his father's house, living the best life, being the favorite son. And then he was sold into slavery. And in slavery, he was brought to the house of a high ranking government official to manage his resources. Now, God was with David. Eh, God was with Moses. God was with David. God was with Joseph. You see, these three men, I noticed by review that every time I reference just these three guys, Moses, Joseph, David. I don't know why, but I really like those three people. David being like my favorite, my ultimate favorite person. Like, I want to sit down with David in a session and just chat, like pick his brains or something. Like, that's my ultimate celebrity. Dead or alive, ever, is David. I want David to mentor me, if that makes sense, right? Anyways, just bringing it back to Joseph. God was with Joseph, right? And he was in Potiphar's house, and he was managing resources. And for Joseph, I don't think he reckoned that managing resources in the house of a government official would lead to managing resources in the prison. And this was not a regular prison, this was a royal prison. And managing resources in the prison would lead to managing resources for the nation for 14 years. I don't think he reckoned that that was going to be the story or the trajectory. But what happened is that in all those seasons, Joseph kept that temperance, that consciousness of the fact that, oh, I'm just trying to make things all right. I just want to be in this place where, and there's no guile, there's no evil, there was no bitterness. There was no bitterness. And this is why his spirit was finding favor everywhere he went. There was no bitterness. When you grow, when growth is happening, is occurring in your life, and the process does not feel right, it feels unfair. Because in Joseph's story, it seems as though all the respite that Joseph had before he became prime minister of Egypt, all the respite that he had was, I think, less than 10 years in total after leaving his father's house. Because in Potiphar's house, he wasn't there long before the wife started to chase him and he went to prison. And he was in prison 17 years. 17 years. And that is what happens when we are growing. Sometimes it's a prison, literally. But if that is the kind of growth required, do you know what it means to manage? Because Joseph was not in regular prison. He was not in the commoner's prison. He was not in the prison of slaves. He was in the prison that you go to when you are in government. The prison that the PA to the prime minister will go to is different from the prison that a regular armed robber on the road will go to. So he was not just in a regular prison. And it's told to us in scriptures that Joseph was made to lead this prison. My point for Joseph to share in Joseph's story is that sometimes growth will not even look anything like it. And so that's why there must be self-awareness in our living. You have to be a conscious liver. You have to be living very consciously so that you can trace your seasons. And that self-awareness, sometimes you can't get it by yourself, especially when things are dire. When you are in a place that feels like prison, it will come from a knowledge of and focus on God. To know that in this season, even now, even in this valley of this shadow of death, you are with me. So I am not scared. What happens when you pass through the valley of the shadow of death is that death no longer scares you because you've passed through it. But you cannot grow to a place where you don't fear death if you don't pass through the valley of the shadow of death. And if David had managed the prison, uh, Joseph, wow, if Joseph had managed the prison for 17 years, I reckon he did not start right out managing it at the year one, but at some point, he probably did it for more than 10 years. Probably did it for more than 12 years, maybe. If he had managed a prison that's, exclusive and high ranking for that number of time, I mean, prisoners are not, exactly privileged people. So if he was able to lead underprivileged people for that length of time, of course, when famine comes and nations are in need and nations are underprivileged, Joseph had experience managing resources for underprivileged people. He had experience managing resources in restraint. So it was not going to be a problem to manage resources for nations. It was not going to be a problem to manage the resource for the entire kingdom. Because if he was put in charge of leadership of the prison at some point, what this meant was that he knew how food was flowing, he knew the systems that were running, he knew the schedule, he knew the programs, he knew who was in and who was out, he knew the prisoners. It was this compassion and leadership that made him notice the person who had a dream, the people that had their own dream, the cupbearer and the what was this other guy's position? Because he was a leader, he was a shepherd in that prison. The leadership joke is coming again, but I'm going to control myself and focus. He was a leader in this prison, so he understood leadership and resource management. And this was 17 years of his life. It's that he started in Potiphar's house, managing resources. And God is like, you know what? This assignment is bigger than this house. So let's up the ante. Let's put you in a place where you have to manage big time while also making the destiny connection that you need. But the destiny connection that you needed did not come until, yo, I just realized something again. Oh, so Joseph spent 17 years in prison, right? And Joseph met the cupbearer 3 years before he left prison. The cupbearer did not remember Joseph for 3 years. Let me check if that timeline is exact. How long? Because um I just want to be sure. I just want to be sure. So let me look for the scripture. It should be in Joseph. Okay, it was 2 years. I thought it was 3 years. So Joseph was 17. Oh, Joseph was 17. He didn't spend 17 years. Joseph was 17 when he was sold into slavery. And he had 13 years between being sold into slavery and becoming the prime minister. So in this timeline, I was gonna quote the wrong timeline. Thank God I stopped and checked. In this timeline of 13 years, he grew into managing resources on a small scale to managing resources on a large scale in the prison. And before he came out of prison, it was 2 years. 2 years after he had interpreted the dream, not 3 years, 2 years. And so for 11 years, he had done this whole back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of leading and managing and leading and managing. If you have 10 years of experience doing something, you are already a specialist. You're already a specialist. So if Joseph did not grow through that 10 years, yes, in as a slave, in bondage, in prison, yes, yes. But in that 10 years, he became a specialist at management and leadership in that 10 years. You have to be conscious of your growth, is my point. You have to be self-aware. That's why I say it comes from fellowship, because when his soul is cast down, he will come to a place where he's like, you know what? I need, I need, I need reassurance, God. I need you to let me know. I need you to let me know. And God will reassure him in that phase, because scripture tells that God was with Joseph. So it was something that he spent time with God. He was like, and in that place, when he gets reassurance, he's like, all right, we keep on keeping on. Since God is with me in this, we keep on keeping on. So he's managing resources in the prison. This is somebody who is in their 20s, by the way. Managing resources in the prison for the nation, the most exclusive prison in the nation, the prison that the um people of the servants and slaves of royalty go to. That's the prison he's at. So in this prison, he's even hearing economic news. He's hearing things like the prime minister did this and they said that. He's hearing like when we read these Bible stories, I like to put it in context because that brings more understanding. In this prison, he's leading these people, but he's hearing something that a governor said. He's hearing something that a president came to visit the prime minister from another land and they said this. He's hearing economic news. So there's wisdom building, there's insight building. He's not aware that he will need this, but he's growing. This is what I mean when I said that there's growth that occurs in our daily living that we're not conscious of. It is dropping, it is coming, it is building. He's not aware, but he's growing in knowledge. Then he already has the spirit of God. Then there's the wisdom of God. And in the middle of that, he's still stewarding his gifts. He's still stewarding his gift. This is holistic growth. This is holistic growth. He's still stewarding his gifts of dreams and translation, right? Whilst being a leader. So somebody comes and say, I have a dream, and he's like, God will give me the interpretation of this dream. He has not left the place of his spiritual gift. He's building skills, he's building information repertoire in his head. He's building a reservoir of valuable information. Because if you want to know the secret of any great person today, speak to their servant. Any rich person, Any wealthy person, any celebrity, you don't know their lives, but you want to know, speak to their help, speak to their housekeeper, speak to their butlers, speak to their, gardeners, speak to their drivers, their assistants. That's where you get the information from. So Joseph is already informed on the workings of government and nation by virtue of where he was already. And this is why, there's that saying, we are beings of nature and nurture. There is your personality and there is the nurturing element around you, your environment. So this guy was being trained for leadership and it was not a conscious thing. All he knew was that God was with him. And if God was with him, he was not in the wrong place. People, the point today is that you have to grow. And that growth sometimes will feel like a burden. You still have to grow. Your focus, your consciousness, your POV, your mind should be, am I where I should be right now? And if the Lord tells you yes, stay there, you are growing. You have to grow. And it cannot be comfortable. I don't know. We, for lack of a better word, idolize. I'm looking for another word, but I couldn't find it. Someone that we respect, admire, want to mentor. You listen to the growth stories of these people, you will be amazed. We have to grow. It's growth. The fearlessness of death will come from walking in the shadow of death. You have to walk in it. That's how you grow. You have to walk in it. If you will not fear death, you have to encounter death to not fear death. If you will not fear lack, you have to encounter lack and pass it over, knowing that even what is lack, there's no such thing. You will look the lack in the face and be like, I'm provided for. It's not negotiable. So anything that you will grow over, you will overcome, you will face it head on. And that's how growth happens. That's how growth happens. I always use the example of exercise. What is building muscle? Is injuring the muscle. You work it, you put pressure and weight on it until the muscle is injured. And then in healing, it sheds fat, it sheds whatever is that extra weight and hardens into muscle. Building muscle is basically your body healing the muscles that you injured by activity. Growth happens when you allow yourself to go through, when you shift out of comfort. Leave that comfort mindset. Leave it somewhere. It belongs in the gutter. It's for children. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I understood that, to do great things in life, I have to feel like it. I understood that if I'm going to do much with myself, I have to psych myself up. I understood that if I do one thing, I must get a reward. I understood that if I achieve a little thing, I must be acknowledged and praised for it. Because I was a child. When I became a man, I threw away childish things. I understood that if I have to work, I have to work. It doesn't matter how I feel. I understood that if I'm going to pray, I have to pray. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling. I'm tired, my legs hurt, my waist hurts, my back hurts. I'm going to go out and pray. Because childish things is saying, I don't feel like it. I just want to, oh my God, you're not a baby. He said, desire the sincere meat. There is milk seasons, there is meat seasons. You have to welcome your meat seasons. What happens when you are growing out of milk season? Your teeth, is why we call it milk teeth. Your teeth start to fall out because the permanent teeth, the teeth that you used to chew bone in this life is setting. So that baby stuff has to leave you. Allow it happen. Allow it happen. When you try to escape growth, the disparity, this is what happened with Jonah now. Jonah wanted to run away. He knew that this is where I was headed, and he ran away. And when he was there and things were happening, he was like, it's me, I'm the problem. It's me. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem, it's me. Singing that respectfully and spiritually. But he knew. He knew that he was the problem. You will know. You will always know. It's like when you are just not where you will know. Your spirit will tell you, your mind will tell you, your body will tell you, everything in you will tell you. Grow, grow, grow. You gotta grow. Leave these childish things. Leave these play things. The truth is, I just said play. I do be it's play things actually. I do be playing a lot, but it's play things. Leave them. Leave them. If Moses did not spend those 40 years away from the palace, if he stayed in that palace, he would still be the person who killed people on impulse out of anger. When he was gonna lead nation, or the nation, he would have killed. Do you know what I mean? Like Moses could have killed a lot. Moses could have killed a lot if he did not have that 40 years away from that system so that he could grow out of that prince mindset. Anything I want, I get. However, he's doing me, I express. If he did not have, and this is Moses who still was known for his temper whenever he was angry. So imagine what that 40 years changed. Your seasons of growth will come. Sometimes it will even catch you on our way. But the moment your spirit man clicks that I'm in a season, just stay there. Be asking God for grace. Be praying for grace, but walk in that light. But God is teaching me. I'm learning something. You are always learning something. Even if it does not feel like that, you are always learning something. There are so many stories. David fought David came at a time when attacks left, right, center were coming against this nation. But David had been fighting small, small. I referenced David yesterday. I think every day I can literally talk about 20 topics and we'll find David in all of them. That guy. Anyways, focus. David had been fighting, right? Fighting wild animals. Fighting wild animals because he was going to fight one very, very key wild animal called Goliath later, but he didn't know. You don't plan these things, but he had built precision with how many times he threw that thing. So if David should set his eye on a target, it will hit because he had done it a lot of times. So in the way that they neglected him, I was listening to a message recently, and the preacher said, when David said, "In iniquity did my mother bear me, I've been born me." I see my English is not English because I'm so excited. When he says he was born in iniquity, he wasn't just saying it as like I was born in sin. He was saying it as that literally, like I'm a bastard child. And that made sense because I referenced the story of Samuel on Monday, I think, or Tuesday, where Samuel was gonna anoint one of the sons of Jesse, and David was not there, and David was the youngest. And that man said, who puts the last child out in the field and leaves the other ones at home? So is that David was the runt of the litter. He was the discarded guy. And so in that season of loneliness, all David did was worship and shepherd, worship and shepherd, worship and shepherd. Because another pastor moment is coming. another pastor, another of those pastor quotes is coming. Because when you worship, you can build your worship. And so that's why David was a, veritable war machine, because he had spent enough time just engaging with the host of the angel armies, with the leader of the host of the angel armies. So war was irregular. I mean, scripture tells us that David and one guy, two people killed 300 people with one weapon. How? How do that occur if you are not a war machine? If you are not actually a living bazooka? Like, how does that happen? Oh my god, my time is up, but I'm enjoying this so much. Anyways, Victoria, please. Victoria, don't encourage me. So all David did, he worshipped and he shepherd. And this is why David had the full understanding of God as a shepherd. You know, reference the leadership moment. Leadership, leading sheep. Yes. David understood leadership from leadership, and he understood creating his worship from worship. Oh, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. Anyways, you know, and so it's that when David was called, he was called out of a moment of being a shepherd. And from shepherding, he entered war. He entered war, literally left, I mean, the story of him and Goliath was he came to deliver food to his brothers who were on the war front. And in that place, he sees Goliath and he's like, who be this guy? Like, what do you mean? Like, why are you talking like that? Like, I got to teach you a lesson or two. And he says, you are not different. You are not different from the lions and the wild animals I fight. You are not different from them. You see, when you I said yesterday that confidence is not a precondition, right? It's not a precondition, it's a result. And this was what had happened with David. David had spent so much time slinging that stone that he knows that there's nothing I will throw this thing at that he will not hit. And what even now made it more secure for him is that I come in the name of God. So I'm not just slinging, I'm slinging in the name of God. It's oh hit badje. Like this guy say, oh hit yeah, something about hitting the target precisely. I come in the name of God. Having grown through a season of loneliness, watching sheep and just throwing this stone every day, every time, protecting sheep, protecting sheep. A lot of people that God was going to use to lead these people, the big fathers, he always led them through a season of shepherding. You must protect something. You protect something. You protect something. Jesus was going to build the church, so Jesus came through carpentry because those ones built. Hey, don't leave me. What's happening this morning? I have to start my day. Oh my gosh. But yeah, because you need to understand leading. And the best example is sheep, because sheep don't have sense. Sheep does not have sense. It's mere. So God will have you go through those seasons. If you are in a season, and in this day and age, we're always in a hurry somewhere. God can be working on you for 10 years in that your growth. He can be growing you for 10 years. I plant things, so I know. One of my favorite things to plant is root herbs like ginger, garlic, turmeric. You can leave that baby there and it's going to look like nothing is happening. It's just leaves. Don't you dare cut the leaf, by the way, because the thing growing under the ground is that, but just leave it there. Come back in 6 months, the leaves are going to be dying. You'll be like, oh my gosh. But bring it out, you're going to have the very, very freshest, most beautiful harvest of ginger you've ever seen. Smells sweet, tastes delicious because this is organic. But if the ginger wanted to come out 2 weeks into being planted, it cannot be ginger now. It will not be ginger. It may be a suggestion of ginger, a hint of ginger, but it cannot be ginger. Don't live a life where you become a hint of yourself. You will know that, and I'm not this person, I'm supposed to be great. It's a suggestion. You will have a suggestion of who you should be, but no really proof. No, it's like having the appearance but lacking the power thereof. Don't be that person. Grow, allow yourself. Shall a seed, except you fall to the ground and die, will it yield? Will it spring forth? Allow yourself. Again, you cannot be fearless in the face of death if you don't die yourself. Allow yourself. Nothing will happen. We already have an illustration in Jesus. He died and he came back. Nothing will happen to you if you allow yourself to grow. Grow through. Go through so you can grow through. Another don't leave me. Go through so you can grow through. Hey, make I no stay here for 2 hours. My point, if you are listening to this now, or if you are going to watch it later, my point is stay. Allow yourself to grow. It's not a burden that will be wasted. It's not a burden just because. Life is not whining you. God is not messing with you. It's a season of growth. Be self-aware. Stay. 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 So stay. Stay. I have a habit. I call it stealing plants. I steal plants. If I go somewhere and I see a really pretty plant, yes, exactly. This is what I'm saying, Victoria. I don't want to be a suggestion of who I am. I want to be who I am. To bring it back, I still, when I go somewhere and I see a plant that I cut a leaf or a bit of it from the stem to regrow it in my house. Now I stole this plant months back, right? I stole this plant. And I cut one part of the leaf from the stem. I cut another leaf. Like I was rushing because I didn't want them to catch me because it's kind of awkward. I mean, the earth is the Lord, and I can really just take it. But once they've planted it in pots, it's like you're stealing. So I'm like, let me just quickly get this. And so I'm cutting the leaf, and I hurry and cut one leaf, but I don't cut it well. And I put this leaf. I forget it on the shelf in my house, just by the window. And weeks later, I see the leaf. I'm like, this leaf is dying because it's upside down. So at the tip of it, it started drying out. And I'm like, this leaf is dying. I need to get it away from there. But I get distracted. I leave it. I go. I come back. I see it another day. This leaf is dying. So finally, I'm cleaning. I'm like, this leaf is dying. I pick the leaf, turn it over. It is growing. The leaf that is dying is acting as root for new growth. I was like, Jesus! I remember sending a video to my friend, like, there's a spirit in my house that is making things grow because I don't understand. I was so shocked. And by meditation, I realized that this is how we must be. Where you are a whole leaf by yourself. That leaf was already whole, it was there. You are a whole by yourself, but you must be okay if you have to die to bring new. Now, that leaf is a plant in the entrance of my house. It's growing by itself peacefully. It has new leaves. I didn't even have to do anything. I just put it at the point where the new leaves started and the old leaf connected. I just put that on soil. By itself, it dug into the soil and is growing big leaves now. The leaves are growing properly. We must be willing to die in that growth. You allow yourself to go through it. Allow yourself to go through it. Allow it. You won't At the end of the day, you think you are dying, but you won't even die. That's what's funny. Is that the old will die so that new can spring forth. The boy whose dream, to bring it back to Joseph, the boy whose dream was to rule in his father's house, to rule his brothers. That boy had to die for a man who would rule Egypt and be a savior for nations in that period to come out. The boy whose biggest dream was all of you will bow down before me had to die so that the man who would rule in Egypt could come out. This is how we grow. Stay. Let me summarize because I genuinely have to go now. You grow by stay. First of all, stay. Stay so that you can know, because sometimes you will not know. You will think that yeah, we believe in village people a lot. We believe it's attack. Any small thing, you already start seeing vision of somebody, one witch somewhere is praying against you. First of all, stay. Won't they have called this spiritual battle? Imagine that they sold you into slavery, but the person who bought you was a prime minister. So the prime minister said, come and be my PA in my house. In that house, you rise so much that the prime minister say everything in this house is in your control. Take everything. The only thing you don't have control on is my wife. It's now the wife that wants you. You will say it's attack. When the wife lies against you and say, he tried to rape me, throw him out, you will say it is witches and wizards. When you stay in that prison, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, you will say it's village people. You will be sure that it's a spiritual attack. Then when 10, 11 years later, the president calls for you and says, they say you can solve the problem of this nation, and you solve it, and president puts ring on your hand and say you are the one that will rule now. Any decision you make, the only thing you don't have is my seat. You have everything else. Is it village attack? This is why you must stay, so that you can know. If you don't stay, you won't know. And then allow pain. Leave comfort zone. Leave childish things. Allow the pain. Grow through it. You go through it so you can grow through it. Go through it. Third, focus. Don't leave your skills. Oh. David did not forget shepherding just because he became a warrior, and that's why he was still a great leader. I say scripture says now people were coming to meet him, hundreds of thousands. We will do anything for you to be our king. It's not just that they like him, it's that he too had something that they were seeing and they wanted to enjoy, to keep enjoying. In summary, people of God, grow. Grow. Yes, so that's the conclusion, Victoria. Selah. Go through it so you can grow through it. Selah. And that's what I came to say today. If you watch to this point, thank you. If you're gonna watch the replay, my prayer, if you were encouraged, if something was brought to your remembrance, if you were jailed up, if you even laughed at some point, I'm blessed already. That's like the goal. The goal is to encourage you and remind you of who you are, so that you don't forget, because this life can make us forget. Don't forget. That's the goal here. And so if you got any of that in this life, I'm blessed already. That's all I came for. And I do this every day, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Today I was late, which is why I'm finishing late. I had a lot of pain to deal with this morning. But yeah, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. every day. And so, that's all. It's just a daily dose of encouragement for your heart and your soul and your spirit and your mind. And so I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Bye, Victoria.